Thanks so much for making some time to talk to us in Mission Roll Call, and thank you so much for your passion in helping solve the veteran suicide crisis. As you know, it's a complicated issue, a lot of issues involved in veteran suicide, but you've addressed a lot of those in the Commander John Scott Hannon Mental Health Improvement Act. Could you maybe talk a bit about that and those solutions and why they're so important?
Well, thank you for Mission Roll Call and its efforts to educate folks, to provide information, to get me feedback, so that when we're doing things right, it's okay to tell me that, but when we're doing things insufficient, not right, we're missing something, that's very valuable to me. It's an honor to serve as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. My number one priority as I became chairman is what can we do? We've spent a lot of time talking about, and we've made some efforts that have been successful to combat suicides, for suicide prevention and to improve our veterans' mental health. But it is perhaps the greatest challenge we face in this country in caring for those who served our nation. So my priority as a chairman of the committee was to see that we address this issue. We do it in a bipartisan way. We come together so that we can get something not only passed the Senate, but passed by the House and signed by the President. And that has occurred at least in the first step with legislation that passed our committee unanimously, that has passed the Senate now unanimously. And we're in the process of trying to make certain that the House takes this legislation seriously. That's a way that our listeners, our viewers could help, is make sure that our colleagues in the House know the importance of this legislation. In kind of a nutshell, what this is about is, one, I'm here at Marcus Institute. Research and development of programs that help treat mental health, TBI, help treat our veterans, help find the methods by which we can prevent suicide. So that's a component of it, but perhaps most importantly is how do we get, what this bill does is get resources to local organizations. Could be a local American Legion post, Vietnam veterans, but there are a lot of just community organizations across the country who love and care for those who served our nation, and they can become part of the effort. I represent Kansas in the United States Senate. We're very rural. We have 30,000 veterans. Many of them live in the most rural and most challenged place for getting access to care. If we can get community organizations in small and big towns across the country engaged in our veterans' lives, we can make a significant difference, and this bill will provide those organizations the resources to do that.
That's amazing. I mean, communities know their citizens best, right? And so, who better to help care for their fellow citizens who happen to be veterans?
You know, there probably is no care, physical or mental, that is as effective as certainly somebody who has training and skill, but who loves and cares for the person they're caring for. And it is true across the country. Those we know, those who live among us, those who are family members we go to church with, we see them at the grocery store. It's going to be a different kind of opportunity for us to reach out and care for those who served.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, sir. How do younger veterans get involved to make sure those representatives know what this is important and to help pass this?
Well, it is a good thing, and in fact a great thing, to see more and more young veterans engaged. My impression is after some of the earlier wars in our country, veterans organizations grew up around those returning servicemen and women. And other wars, it was less likely. I grew up with Vietnam in the back of my life. I would not indicate at all that I'm a veteran, but I saw what happened to those who served our nation during the Vietnam War and how they were treated when they returned. I think caused them to have kind of less of the organization, less engagement, and were in a sense forced into separation. Today, our veterans are returning from our wars of this generation in ways in which they are fully committed toward, in many ways, their community, but perhaps more importantly and more specifically is support of other veterans. What I hear all the time is some other veteran told me, this is what I need to do. So part of it is my compliment to veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere who are engaged in the lives of others that served in those wars with them. The second part of that is that may lend itself toward when you see a problem, and I know that politics today is difficult, there's lots of division, but one place that Washington, D.C. still does a pretty good job of Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives in agreement is caring for those who served our nation. And that gives veterans, even those who may dislike politics, engage in this issue of how we can help. When I talk to a veteran, I know that I'm getting the real story, the full account of what happened.
Sure.
I talked to lots of experts, medical providers, experts in the field of treating healthcare and treating and promoting suicide prevention. But the reality is, when I'm talking to somebody who's served and experienced, I know I'm getting what I need to know to try to help them. And every veteran has a story. And I would tell those young veterans who are willing to engage, I would encourage them to engage. And when they do, they are probably going to be the best spokesperson, and they are going to make more difference than anybody who is a paid lobbyist or an expert. You as a veteran, you as a young veteran, if you will engage with your elected members of Congress, House members, senators, you will make a difference. We respect you, and we respect your opinions and views.
Appreciate that. That's so great, too. That's what we try to do at Mission Roll Call, is to build a platform so veterans can engage and we can meet with you, sir, and thank you for your time meeting with our elected officials. And maybe just one final question. You talked so much about veterans being the best resource for other veterans, and when I talked to a lot of folks I served with in Iraq and Afghanistan, I try to tell them, you know, I don't want this to be the story you're telling when you're 80 years old, you're one year in Iraq or 1 year in Afghanistan. We've been through hard things, but there's a concept around post-traumatic growth where if we seek help, we help each other, when we come to places, we can go out and be in our communities and be incredible leaders again. And so maybe what do you think about veterans coming and being civic assets in their community and what you've seen in that?
Historically in our nation, those who've made the biggest difference obviously are those who served in the military. But that's not the extent of that. That isn't the end of their service. We've seen in so many instances, generation after generation, those who served in the military come home and serve their community. And again, they're respected. They have experiences that are of great value to others. Our country desperately needs people who engage certainly in national politics or in working at the state level, but we only change the world one person at a time.
Right.
It happens in communities across the country every day, and nobody can do it better than a veteran, somebody who has earned the right to be a leader in their community.
I appreciate that, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your service.
Sir, thank you. It was my honor, very much so. Thank you.